Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first webinar of a new webinar series that we're launching today, Psychological Safety in Focus. Actually, at Cosmic Centaurs, psychological safety has been a core part of our work for many years, shaping how we design organizational assessments, leadership programs, team experiences, and even how we operate internally. It's central to our belief that teams perform at their highest when people feel safe enough to speak up, ask questions, share concerns, and learn together. This commitment has grown steadily over time, and earlier this year, we achieved an important milestone. Cosmic Centers became the exclusive MENA and Arabic language partner of the Fearless Organization SCAN, the gold standard assessment for measuring psychological safety, co founded by Sander Hoeken and Harvard professor Amy Edmondson. This partnership brought validated research backed measurement tools, now also available in Arabic, to leaders and teams across the region. This month, we also launched our first Fearless Organization Scan Practitioners cohort, where we certify HR professionals, other consultants, and coaches to run the Fearless Organization Scan. Also, this month, actually a few weeks back, we hosted our first roundtable in Dubai, where we convened around 20 HR professionals and leaders from across MENA for the region's first discussion of its kind, co-facilitated by our guest of honor, Sander Hoeken, who came to Dubai all the way from Denmark. Together, no, actually from Netherlands. Together, we explored the global insight from the Fearless Org research, what leaders in the region need, and where global models must adapt to local realities. We published a report last week. I don't know if you saw it on our stream, but us to go through the findings of this report and answer all the questions you may have around it. Please share any questions you have in the chat. We'll do our best to address them during the conversation. Actually, the report that we published was split into 4 chapters, and that's how we are gonna set up the discussion today. So our 4 chapters are first about the psych safety itself, so introducing it and making sure that we all have a good understanding of what it means and why it matters. Then we're gonna walk you through some global insights that Sander revealed to us during the roundtable from their research in the Fearless Organization scan. We will also go through what we've heard from the leaders in the roundtable, so everything around the regional context, how we experience psych safety in our parts of the world. And last, we will also talk about next steps, practices, and interventions you can conduct with your team to embed psych safety. I'm joined today by Marilyn, our CEO and founder. We were also supposed to have Hadeel with us, who is a senior consultant on the team, but unfortunately she is sick. So it's going to be me and Marilyn unpacking the findings of this report together today. Before we get started, Marilyn, do you want to say something about the last events of this month, whether it's the roundtable, also maybe talk about our partnership with the Fearless Organization SCAN?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you were listing them, and even the other day, we sent a newsletter with just what happened the last month. It was quite overwhelming in the most positive of ways to see how much we've accomplished. Of course, it's easy to think that these things happen on their own, but they are months in the making of, years, one can say also, of practicing psychological safety, but months, maybe almost a year since I met Sander, of also building this partnership, of becoming certified ourselves to be able to certify others, of using the tool and watching its magic unfold. I'm really very excited to not simply kind of be bringing this tool to life in the region, but also be the voice of the region. That's why a lot of our focus is not simply on talking about the model, the assessment, and so on, but also on bringing in the nuance of what it means to do that in the UAE, in a very multicultural context, in Saudi, in Lebanon, in the region, and so on. So that's very, very exciting. And I should say, the month for me, at least, will culminate as well next week in Global Psych Safety Day, where I will be joining a panel to talk about the nuances across different parts of the world. So just a lot of really exciting things, honestly.
Totally. I echo how much we're proud to be bringing the voice of the region, I think for the first time, to Global Psych Safety Day. So we'll be sharing also findings and what we are going to learn on Psych Safety Day in our next episode of the webinar. But today, let's start by unpacking the report that we created and worked on based on the roundtable. And let's start with the basics. So before we unpack the data, and what we've learned about the region, it's important we also start by a shared definition of what psych safety is and what it really means in practice. So the way Amy Edmondson defines psych safety, it is the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes, and that the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking. Marilyn, many people assume that psych safety actually means comfort, avoiding conflict, or being nice. Can you clarify what psychological safety is and is not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we should start every webinar with talking about the definition over and over and over again, precisely because so many people misunderstand the concept or have built their own definition of what psychological safety is. And part of it is because of the name, which leaves itself open to interpretation. If Amy had called it green extraterrestrials, then everybody would have to know what the meaning is. But because psychological safety sounds like something you can interpret, a lot of people do interpret it. And being a nerd myself, I want to be clear. The meaning of the word is null. No one cares what the word is. What matters is what it measures, right? And what psych safety measures is not if we feel safe, quote unquote, as in from the context of well-being or whether we feel like we're not ever challenged in any way. And a lot of what we do is start our webinars, our sessions, our trainings with revalidating that actually psychological safety is not about comfort, it's not about being nice, it's definitely not about avoiding conflict or removing accountability. In fact, in Amy's research, it is bringing together psych safety, high levels of psych safety, and high levels of accountability where the magic happens. The goal is never just psych safety. The goal is to create conditions where teams go into their learning zone. And by going into their learning zone, they become higher performing, come up with new ideas, are more innovative, and so on and so forth. So I think for the rest of my life, we're going to start every session by explaining what psych safety is.
I echo that. Also, we say it a lot that we position psych safety as a business metric or a business indicator and not as a like employee engagement or well-being indicator. It certainly has a link. It certainly influences it in a positive way. But what it is first and foremost, it's an indicator that the team is able to perform, achieve, reach their targets, and also innovate. So yeah, always trying to bring this back into the conversation, making sure that we all understand it well and are able to explain it to people around us. In the roundtable, Sander shared with us the findings from the global research. So everything they've been working on in the past years, all the surveys and the research are coming back with some data that can inform us more about how psychological safety is lived and what are the, let's say, components that can affect the score. Marilyn, do you want to walk us a bit about what we know now from global research about psych safety?
Yes, I mean, I think the first thing that we know, and I think it's good to stress that because that's why we chose to bring psych safety to this region as well, is that actually the measurement of psych safety reveals the same kinds of distributions anywhere in the world. So, as far as we can tell from the data, it doesn't, people don't experience, perceive, or report on, if you want to call it that, psychological safety any differently, no matter where they're sitting. They don't report on it differently, depending on whether they're introverts or extroverts. And to my greatest joy, because I am very critical of the concept of generations, they don't report on it differently if they come from different generations. So that's the first thing that we can see, which is psychological safety is a universal experience. That's why this concept is so powerful. And that's, I think, the first thing we can talk about. The next thing that was really interesting is how people perceive psychological safety differently, depending on their position in the hierarchy, right? So, surprise, surprise, leaders, as soon as you become the leader, you rate your own psych safety higher than the team members of your own team. That's easy to explain to some degree because you have more control, more access to information, you can make more of the decisions yourself. So there's a lot of you feeling like, yes, of course, I'm super comfortable in this role. So that's an interesting finding. And another one is that, of course, people who aren't sure about their role tend to have the lowest psych safety. And again, that starts to show us that what practices can help to improve psych safety. I think that's always the interesting thing for me, because for many years, psych safety was a measurement of a specific, again, team attribute, but it didn't tell us what to do about it. So I think those are the fact that we're starting to see some elements of what are the practices that support and increase psych safety. Of course, we can talk about our own research separately. That's a first layer of the findings that was really interesting to me. What about you, Marie?
Yeah, actually, I want to build on something you said and maybe explain it a bit more, how it is a team factor. Something Sander brought out our attention to during the roundtable was that when you answer the questions of the survey, you answer them in the third person. So you are not answering about yourself, you are answering about the team. And when you put this distance between you and the team, then that means that whether it's your personal trait, your emotions, or anything that you are experiencing will not affect how you evaluate the team, because what is psych safety about? It's about measuring the team and not yourself in this team. And that's also a good maybe argument when we talk to leaders, that it's not a measurement of you or your efficiency as a leader, it's the measure of the team environment, and that's the team environment that's going to actually lead to better innovation or collaboration, etc. So a lot of really making sure that we understand that it is first a team measure that can be scaled, of course, and that can be brought to the organization, but it is first mostly lived within the team, and that's how we need to look at it in order to understand it more. I know also from this year research, they're gonna share, like Amy and Sander are gonna share with us more on Psych Safety Day, but this year they are also measuring the relationship between psych safety and loneliness at work, quitting thoughts. I'm not gonna give any spoilers, but we are gonna wait and see next week.
You had some spoilers, but until then, and I think Marie also, like what Sander and Amy have done in their partnership in the last decade, is also bring, to me, the big learning from working with the Fearless Org Scan is taking the psych safety scale, which is these 7 questions, and even further breaking them down and associating them with the 4 dimensions. Because again, I think that so the 4 dimensions, of course, being inclusion and diversity. So do people feel accepted within their difference in a team? Willingness to help, how we respond to risk and failure, and whether or not we have open conversation as a team. And again, that was so helpful from a practitioner's perspective, because now not only are we talking broadly about the score, but we can now zoom in and say, oh, beautiful. Like if we get better at how we deal with failure and risk, then we can make our team higher performing. And that's been really helpful to be able to bring that clarity to leaders.
Totally. And the more we talk about it, the more we also collect data and learn all together how we can foster it better, how we can talk about it better. And that basically was the first reason why we wanted to hold this roundtable, and we wanted to embark more companies from this region, because unfortunately our region does not really have a voice in this data. So far, all the data that has been shared globally does not include any insight from our region, and that's the reality that we hope that we want to change. And part of our mission by being the Arabic language partner is also making it more relevant in our culture and our language, and contextualize it. There's a lot of discussions around, is psych safety the same here or in Europe or in the US? So Marilyn, what is your take on this?
Yeah, so I mean, the take is simple, right? The data shows that the way we experience, measure, rate psych safety in a team is universal. But it doesn't mean that the way that we practice it is universal. I think that's the distinction we need to make. If we take attitude to risk and failure, or let's take open conversation, right? So this is about all of us as a team kind of being able to openly bring up problems and tough issues collectively. right? Because the question that's asked is, members of the team are able to bring up problems and tough issues, either collectively or to their leader. This is not experienced exactly the same way in a culture that is extremely high on hierarchy, that is conflict avoiding, and that is high context, such as our culture, versus a culture that is low context, direct negative feedback, and willing to engage in direct conflict. And to try and like, so if you, when we take the assessment, we sound the same. But if we were to observe a team that has a high score on open conversation, not in, well, in Denmark or in the Netherlands, versus one that has a high score on open conversation over here in Saudi Arabia, we may not see that they look the same to us. But in their cultural context and how they experience how much openness is good, have they remained respectful towards their hierarchical leader? Did they choose the correct moment to do something? Did they maintain the safety of their relationship versus somewhere else where that's more of a given? They won't look the same. And that's perfectly okay. And I think that's what matters, is to, as a leader, as a consultant, a coach, whatever interaction you have with the team, a member of the team, is to truly try and figure out what makes sense here, rather than simply try to look like what a psychologically safe team looks like in Google in the US.
Totally, and it depends a lot on the context. And what's beautiful about this tool is that by itself, it's not telling of everything. We need to link it back to the context, and there's a lot of ways that we can learn and use this tool to explain behaviors and what we see in teams. And the context here in this region is very particular, like whether it's in the UAE or in Saudi, there's a different actually factors that make the workplace look different, and the mix of cultures also is really interesting. And what we've seen is that globally, it doesn't really sound the same in terms of what the workforce or what the workplace looks like. And that's why we are hoping that with more data, more conversations around psych safety in the region, we are able to gather more. And we started having a bit of that during the roundtable. Like, we've heard from people who were there about uh, the kind of leadership that we have in this part of the region, and are they seeing people as a growth lever? Are they still in expansion mode? Like, what is on the mind of leaders in the region that influences how they look at psych safety? So, Marilyn, being also a leader from this region, what do you think is particular about our leaders?
Yeah, look, I mean, from the leader's lens, I think that first of all, there's a lot more pressure on us to look and sound and behave in certain ways, to seem in control, to always get things right. I always joke about my mother and how she used to look at my test results when I came back from school and had a 19.5 over 20 on my exam. Never would we celebrate the 19.5. We'd always look for the mistake. So I think, first of all, culturally, like, the self expectation and the contextual expectations of leaders is that they are flawless. There's not a lot of space for like, oh, it's okay, we are all a work in progress, and this is great. Like, oh, amazing, I get one more data point. Like, that's not how it's perceived. It's perceived sometimes as a threat. Oh, I'm being rated. And part of the reason why that's a problem is because of how organizations use the assessment. I know that, when Sander was here, we went around and visited a few organizations in the region. We had that conversation. The way that organizations here use the psych safety assessment, usually as part of a Great Place to Work survey or something like that, is they do it once a year and they compare it, and you have to get the numbers up. And so it ends up being a test. And actually, psychological safety scale, and Amy says it all the time, is meant to be a conversation starter. It's not meant to be a goal. We shouldn't say like, oh, I need to score this much. I even remember a few years ago, so we have an internal kind of employee engagement tool that measures, general satisfaction across many different dimensions. I remember having a conversation with Tala where she's like, and next year our goal is to have an average of 9.1. And I'm like, please don't do that. Because the second you put pressure on people to say that if you're not engaged, we are failing as an organization, and we're going to only look at it from the perspective of that measurement, actually you're going to put pressure on people to score. And we see this, by the way, behind the scenes all the time. Organizations where people tell us, oh yeah, we got high scores, but it's not the truth, because it's a weaponized assessment. And what it really should be is a coaching support, is a leadership support, and is a team support, something to put a bit of data behind a conversation so that we can have a starting point. So I know that was a very long-winded answer, but I think it's really essential in understanding the dynamics between the leader and the assessment, and always to position it as we are all work in progress. We are just giving you one more tool to be able to have meaningful conversations, to learn, to agree with your team on the way forward, to bring together improvements, but also to learn what you're doing really well. And that's just part of continuously seeking to be a little bit better.
I love what you're saying. Also, like to be also more clear about how the tool works, and we've discussed that. A lot of organizations are including, as you said, psych safety and other surveys because they are afraid that people maybe are answering many surveys during the year, and with the survey fatigue, they don't want to add one more. But what we've seen is that it is being taken out of its context and why it was built for when it's done this way. And we lack depth into the data, and we lack also more analysis that we can do when it's linked to a context. So instead of it being it once a year, actually it's a short survey, it's only 7 questions. So making it as a ritual when we, let's say, do quarterly retrospectives, or where we are out of a special period of we've been busy, people are overloaded, maybe we want to have a discussion about how people felt, and bringing data into that removes the emotions out of it and makes it easier for people to actually comment and discuss why they scored the way they score. So taking psych safety out of this is like an organization vanity measure to it's a team tool to actually have difficult conversations and come up with initiatives or improvements we want to see in our team, because we know that this is normal. Like, it's normal that people experience things differently on the team. It's normal that we go through phases where things might not be as let's say perfect as they need to be, and making it part of the process and making it part of how the team actually improves the ways of working is where it can really be utilized at its best. We've also, like, I know, like, people are commenting, like, we've
I want to bring in a few questions.
yeah, there's questions like Matt saying like how they used it in the team, and in situation related, let's say, to burnout or sustainable performance, using it as a coaching tool. So maybe we can answer some of these questions.
I
There's
want
so
to
many.
start because I think he's making such a beautiful point, and it's actually a good position. Resha also has a question about, like, how do you bring it to life?
Yeah.
And I really love what Matt is saying, because essentially he's saying, actually, we worked on something else, right? We worked on, I think it was modeling, like talking about burnout and achieving sustainable high performance. And the secondary effect was that psych safety went up. And actually, and Resha is asking us, like, how do you embed this? Actually, we want to say exactly what Matt is saying, which is that you shouldn't look at how do I increase my psychological safety score. No one cares. Actually, that you won't be able to. There's nothing you can do. What you can do is say, and that's why the research this year is interesting. As we said, we're going to start seeing the relationship between psych safety and loneliness. We've done our own research over 3 years with Connie Hadlee, who's also the person providing the loneliness scale this year. We did our own research around how rituals increase psychological safety. But we look at psych safety as a second order benefit. In fact, in a lot of our programs and a lot of our work with organizations, we don't even have to use the word psych safety. in the sense that we say, let's break it down. What are things that we know that when these things are good or well managed, then psych safety goes up? Then we focus on those things. We focus on the culture of feedback. We focus on how to deal with failure, how to relook at processes, how to run retrospectives. We focus on teaching people, and there's a question somewhere about multicultural teams, the Erin Meyer work on cultural dimensions and being able to understand on average how we differ from each other. So we do also, like Matt, believe that you can not even mention the word psych safety if you want, and rather focus on the underlying variables, and that will, as a second order effect, improve your psych safety score.
Totally. I think also there's different ways we can implement. We're going to talk about rituals, practical tips, but I want to spend a bit more time on the regional aspect. And I see a question from Sabah that I like, actually, what is unique to our region that can make building psych safety easier or harder? Like for me, we say how in this region we are very much community driven, and we also we are used to being part of a bigger entity, and we are used to care for others. And I see that in the scans that we run with the teams, that mostly the willingness to help score is usually always high. And I don't know if this is like something related to our part of the world, but when we see the score of psych safety through the 4 domains, the pattern that I keep seeing is that willingness to help is high, attitude to risk and failure is low. And I think that's what makes it harder, because we are mostly overachievers, we have high ambitions, we are raised, as Marilyn said before, to always score very high in all our tests. So this is what we started to see. I don't want to be stereotyping, but like maybe these are ways where we can see that there's similarities in our region and how we respond to some of the elements of psych safety. I don't know, Marilyn, if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think this is kind of it. And I think maybe the other thing that I'll say is different in our region is we, in terms of the learning and development effort that is put into teaching people how to become managers is really, really low compared to other places. So I think we have a specific cultural context, but we also don't have a lot of organizations that have matured sufficiently yet, where they're at the point where they say, this is what it means to be a good manager. Here are the skills that I can teach you that will help you to understand cross-cultural difference, manage risk and failure, create open environments, encourage collaboration. So we don't have that middle management and leadership layer kind of academies, if we want to put them. Very few organizations have them here. And so very few people actually get access to that. It's as if, so we're expected to just simply wake up one day and be really good at doing that. And generally we're promoted because we were technically really strong, but not necessarily because we were good at managing others. And so, in fact, we end up finding that a lot of our work around psych safety is middle management training. And that's a big component of it. So that's more of a kind of a contextual factor of we start off with specific cultural dimensions that may make some aspects harder than others, and we don't get taught how to overcome them. And so those two things together mean that we have a bit of work to do.
Totally. And when we started, when we were talking in the roundtable, everyone loves the concept, and everyone say yes. Like, I would love to be in an organization where people feel free to speak up and challenge ideas, etc. Me as the HR or as the consultant or as the coach, I'm all for it. But then how do I pitch that to my leadership, and how do I explain the concept in order to put it on the agenda of the company. That was a big also discussion point we had in the roundtable, where people were finding it difficult to position it in a way that is going to resonate with leaders. Any advice, Mahalin, on how to pitch psych safety internally?
Yeah. I mean, as we said earlier, our purpose as an organization is to build happy workplaces, because we fundamentally believe that organizations that thrive are places where people do their best work. And that means that people thrive there as well. And the beauty of psychological safety, and why we chose to be the voice of this particular concept in the region, is that it's one of those concepts that is demonstratively impacting the bottom line of organizations. The Project Aristotle is one that we always talk about, because it's actually what made psych safety famous, but it's also one of the moments where we were able to see that teams that score high on psych safety, and in this particular context, it was Google trying to understand what makes high-performing teams. And they saw within their ranks, after 3 years of sifting through data, that if teams scored on high psych safety in the context of sales teams, they could get 50% higher revenue. So I think that, of course, business leaders want their people to be happy, but they also have a responsibility to build a sustainable organization. And they every day make trade-offs between investing in an asset, growing the team, training people, doing this measurement, wasting people's time or not. As a leader, it is your job at the end of the day to make sure your company is successful. And sometimes you have to make tough calls between what you trade off on. So for me, the argument is always to say, do you want your company to be higher performing? Yes. Okay, great. Here is one way you can do that. And here's the data to prove it. Now we can talk about what the implementation looks like, who is impacted, yes or no, so on and so forth. So I think there's those two layers. One is, let's talk about your P&L. And two is, let's talk about how to build a great organization where people do their best work, because that'll also impact your P&L, but it'll also mean that everybody's happy coming to work, which is to some equally important.
Totally. And I think what we also can add to that is that changes can start very small. Like, it doesn't have to be groundbreaking, or it doesn't have to like take on a lot of time or resources. As you said, middle management training is a great way to start. It's a way to also make sure that within like teams, some practices are being created or implemented, and people are starting to let's say amend a bit like the way they run team meetings. So it's like very, very small changes that can start creating more psych safety. And that's what we also say to the leaders we work with, is that we can start gradually. First, we can start by educating people around it. We can start with few, let's say, webinars, or maybe like roundtables where we can talk about it, and then later on start implementing those rituals within teams that are not only good for psych safety, actually they're good for the way the teams are run, and for the way projects are being managed and delivered. So it's also to say that don't think that it's going to be like a very difficult thing to do. It can start with small things, and then the ripple effect is going to grow, and we can start seeing impact. So it's also a good way to break it down and like show how practically this can be implemented on the ground in ways that don't disrupt so much things, but actually add to it more value by bringing those small changes. And a lot of examples that we've seen with companies we've worked with, whether it's by adding rituals like retrospectives or check-ins, or a quarterly brainstorming session to bring more voices from the team into like coming up with new ideas, innovation. So all of these might be a couple of hours more on the calendar, but they save us actually a lot of time later from saving a project or resolving conflict, or like not aligning well with each other. So small practices, small changes in the behaviors, especially at management level, can create a big impact. And that's actually what leads us into our last chapter of the conversation. So how can we provide leaders with a framework, with a path forward, if they are willing and want to commit to embedding more psych safety in the teams? Marilyn, how would you get them started?
Yeah, I mean, I want to start just by a little like self promotion, which is to say that we have a really wonderful webinar that is about an hour long that we are happy to run for your organizations for free. Usually we do that a lot with comms or people teams that have a broader program and kind of bring monthly webinars to their organization. We'd be happy to be one of those. We've ran it successfully for a lot of great organizations and always receive incredible feedback. So I just wanted to like put a little advertising in the middle of this. If you're listening to us today and you'd like us to do this for your company, we'd be happy to. Now, ask me your question again.
So how to get started? So what is like a map or a path forward that we can suggest?
Look, I mean, we talk extensively about this, obviously, in our webinars, but I think that if we look at the 4 domains, you can start to kind of unpack them and say, what is one really small thing that I can do differently that's going to make someone feel included today? What's a really small thing that I'm going to do differently that makes my team, if I'm the leader or even if I'm a team member, see that the way that we respond to failure is by turning it into an opportunity. So in fact, like I really want you to think of like 5-minute shifts because the idea isn't, as you said, to burden you with yet another thing that you have to do, but rather about transforming slightly. It could be the way you respond to failure, just like simply the words you choose, your body language, whether you get upset or not, and whether you get your team together to do a post-mortem, to deal with it, to progress. It could be as simple as I don't have them on my desk right now, but we have, as many of you know, a game called Cosmic Conversations. Maybe you have one, Maria. There you go.
Yeah.
And it's just like prompt questions to get to know each other better. You can do one per week, and that makes people feel included because now I can know some really cute detail about what your favorite snack is, and suddenly like there's a connection between us. So I really think it's about identifying small nudges, how you start a meeting, how you wrap it up, how you respond to something, how you invite other people's ideas into a conversation. You know, Sander gives us a beautiful example, which we apply. If you're a leader in a meeting and you want your team to kind of maybe comment on something, then doing it alphabetically and stating, like saying, I'm going to do this alphabetically because I don't want the same person to be the first person to start every time. So it's really, honestly, all the data we can find, and we can talk about rituals as well. All the data we can find tells us that increasing psych safety is in the beautiful basics, and it's in the consistency of applying them. So you can pick really small new habits, but you have to try. There are always going to be bad days where we don't succeed to be the best version of ourselves, but try to apply them consistently. And to kind of just for a minute talk about the research we did. So over 3 years with Connie Hadlee, we were studying the impact of rituals on teams, not only on psych safety. We were looking across a lot of dimensions: commitment to purpose, willingness to stay in your job, job satisfaction, so on and so forth. We published an article about it in HBR. We'll post it in the comments. But one of the things that we found is that in teams that consistently engage in team rituals, and what is a ritual? So a ritual is a recurring habit that a team comes together to do that has meaning for them. So it can be a meeting, but it's given a meaning. So what I mean by that is we have a daily stand-up, but the meaning of that daily stand-up is it's a moment of connection. It's a moment of asking and giving help, because we do a lot of like, can I take this off your plate? You sound like you have a lot. Do you need something to progress on that? So, and it's a moment of transparency so that we all feel like, yes, we're aligned on the way forward. So it's not just, oh, we have to come and talk about our tasks. It's actually a ritual to us because it carries all this meaning. And so what we found is that teams that have, I don't remember the exact numbers, maybe more than 6 or 7 rituals that they run consistently, whether they're daily or weekly or monthly or yearly, whether it's celebrating someone's birthday, whatever it may be, those teams automatically, because of the second order effects of this, will score higher on psychological safety. So another way of that kind of beautiful basics in a disciplined manner is to relook at your cadence as a team, to think meaningfully about the kind of rituals you want to bring to life, and simply to show up consistently and run them.
Thank you for that beautiful summary of our research. We'll put the link to it. If I remember well, what we found out, it was that rituals increase psych safety by 22%, if I'm not mistaken. So there's
teams score high on our ritual scale had a 20% higher psych safety score.
Yeah, so rituals is a great way to get started. Before I close us off, I want to take a couple of questions. I saw, actually, Kahlas asked, how do we know that people are actually saying the truth? That when they score psych safety, how do we know that it's a true
I want to say that a truly psychologically safe team is not agreeable 100% of the time. So if you see a team that is always agreeable, that like does not engage in conflict or active disagreement, they are not safe. And we always take this joke as a team, like if you, because both her and I are very spirited people, but if you watch me and Tala have a conversation about an art direction for a campaign, we are not nice to each other, you know what I mean? And we are actually very nice to each other, but we're not nice to each other's ideas. So we're not afraid of disagreeing and having task conflict, and I would say all of us are not afraid, but with her and me it shows up strongly because we're big characters and we're loud, but the whole point is that if you are psychologically safe, you are disagreeing, you are engaging in conflict. The difference is you know that it's a temporary state and that the end goal is to improve our collective outcome, not to blame, point fingers, find fault with someone. So that's a very simple way of knowing whether a team is really safe or not.
Yeah, Tala is saying it's part of the fun. Actually, I would add also, Kahla, maybe that we have different data that we can collect and look at when we assess a team. So if we only look at one survey, it might not be enough, but there's a lot of data that we can get, whether by interviewing people, observing, maybe when people leave, checking exit interviews, and also performance indicates whether people are actually answering well, because if you see that everything looks good, but the team is not actually performing or hitting their targets, then something must be wrong. So there's a lot of data that exists about the team that we can see or collect or seek in order to assess if what we are seeing is actually what the team truly thinks. And we get it a lot, by the way, when we run the team debriefs after we run the survey and the scan. When we see that the data says something, but people in the room might not be comfortable talking about it. So here it's also making sure that people are prepared and know, and they are also aware of what is expected of them, what kind of behavior we would like to invite into the room. So making sure that when we invite feedback from people, make them feel safe, make them feel that actually, on the contrary, we want them to challenge, we want them to say whatever goes into their mind. And it might take a bit of time. Maybe the first time they're going to be skeptical, but when we show up with consistency and we always invite conflict or challenges or even positive thoughts, that's an indicator that we are here to listen and we want people to say what they truly think. So there's a lot of like a combination of different ways where we can ensure that actually these tools are being used properly and people understand the added value of saying what they truly think. I don't know if we have other questions. We will try to answer them later on in the chat. We are gonna also have many more occasions to speak about psych safety. We have planned a few series and a few webinars in the series. So thank you for being here today. If you want to stay tuned to what's coming next, you can subscribe to our newsletter. Someone from the team will put the link out there. And also, if you haven't downloaded the roundtable report, we will also make sure that you have the link for it. It really captures everything we've discussed in the roundtable. And as Marilyn also said, another event we are inviting you to is the Psych Safety Day on December 3. It's running in the US, so it's a bit late for us. It starts at 8 p.m. Dubai time, but the recordings are gonna be available to watch for a month after the event. So if you're interested, we're also gonna give you the link to how you can attend Psych Safety Day. And actually, Marilyn is gonna be on a panel that explores psych safety across cultures. So a continuation of our discussion today. And she's gonna be a part of this panel. We're gonna all post more about it in our detail. Thank you so much for joining. If you are like, if you need any assistance or if you have any questions, you can like just message us on LinkedIn, and we are very happy to give you more answers about psych safety and how you can implement it in your teams. Marilyn is pinging me. She's like, do you want to offer a free ticket for the Psych Safety Day? Gladly, actually, as guests on this event, we have a few complimentary tickets to offer. So if you really, really want to attend and you would like to hear firsthand all the insights that Amy Edmondson and Sander Hoeken and the rest of the speakers will share on that day, feel free to message us, and we'll be happy to offer a ticket to attend. Thank you again for joining. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did, and hope to see you in our next episode next week.